Christians are changing Hollywood and the movie industry in ways that you really don't expect. Netflix, Amazon Prime Video and Lionsgate are greenlighting project after project, like the current Amazon show House of David, and other faith-based companies like Angel Studios, Kingdom Story Company, and the recently launched Wonder Project Studios are producing boundary-pushing Christian content. Here's why Hollywood is investing big budgets in Christian movies and TV shows right now. I'll also show you some of the most exciting and interesting projects coming up, and why I think that what we're seeing right now in the Christian filmmaking space is very similar to what was happening with the new Hollywood movement in the 1970s and independent movies in the 1990s. Christian filmmaking is booming right now, and the reasons for that can be broken down into three specific successes. First of all, we had Jesus Revolution, which was a surprise success in 2023, earning $54 million worldwide against a production budget of only $15 million. Then we had Sound of Freedom that earned $251 million on a budget of only $14.5 million. These are crazy numbers. Like, only Marvel, Disney movies, franchise sequels, prequels earn this kind of numbers, or Christopher Nolan movies, but this is very unusual for an original film. And then of course we have The Chosen, which is the most successfully crowdfunded TV show of all time. And The Chosen in and of itself told the Gospels through high quality, authentic filmmaking, has become a cultural phenomenon that has blended into the mainstream like no faith-based or Christian production of its kind. John Irwin, who is the co-founder of Wonder Project Studios and the creator of the show House of David, said this about faith-based filmmaking: the sheer size of the audience is enormous. This is the largest undeserved niche audience in the world. A 2023 study showed us that 67% of the US population, that are 224 million people, are Christians. That's more than half of America being Christian. And these numbers are quite shocking to me, because when we look into pop culture, media, movies, music, it seems like it's the entire opposite, like there are no Christians around doing interesting stuff. And I don't think this is because of an hidden agenda or because people don't want Christians in the spotlight. I actually think it's because Christians haven't been doing the most interesting movies. Many of us, when they think about Christian filmmaking, they still think about bad, generic looking, poorly made movies that have this like cringe Hallmark style, that can't even hold up to secular filmmaking and what Hollywood has to offer instead in terms of quality. I frequently review faith-based and Christian movies on this channel right here, and there have been a lot of Christian movies that were really great. Films like Silence by Martin Scorsese, A Hidden Life by Terrence Malick, The Prince of Egypt, Chariots of Fire, The Blind, Blue Miracle, Andrei Tarkovsky, It's a Wonderful Life, Ordinary Angels, and the recently Oscar shortlisted animated short film, The 21. I do my reviews right here to spotlight this great Christian filmmaking that is happening, but I have to admit these are some niche recommendations aside from, you know, the big classics. But when it comes to current Christian filmmaking, these aren't the films that get displayed and distributed in any big way. And it's true that there are a lot of Christians out there that have been fed really poorly made movies, because most people aren't like film nerds that do a lot of research and find these films that have been overlooked. And the industry is seeing the success of A Sound of Freedom, of The Chosen, and they recognize there is a big audience for this kind of material, and that's the reason why Hollywood is hopping on this trend right now. And when we look into the stories of like Christian filmmaking companies like Angel Studios or 5 and 2 Studios by Dallas Jenkins, we see one similarity. The people behind all of this have broken into the film industry as outsiders, as independent filmmakers from the outside in. Their Christian movies and TV shows have been crowdfunded, independently produced, and just had visions that were different than what the mainstream was used to. These Christian films and TV shows are successful because they're different and honestly connected to a specific audience. And they weren't successful because they had like big stars in the movie or big marketing budgets. It was just that because they were high quality and authentic. And this totally reminds me of the new Hollywood era of the 1970s. For those of you that don't know, it was an era where independently made movies became quite successful because they served an audience that was overlooked by the mainstream industry. Serving undervalued audiences made it possible for independent filmmakers to break into the industry and have like successful prolific careers. I'm talking about movies like Jaws by Steven Spielberg, who really served an audience who wanted to see a different kind of horror movie. I'm also talking about movies like Bonnie and Clyde and The Godfather in the 70s that showed a more violent, authentic kind of gangster movie that was more human than what audiences were used to with the gangster film genre. I'm also talking about movies like Easy Rider, who were made for like a hippie drug using audience, also like a biker audience. That like movies weren't made for these kinds of people at the beginning of the 1970s. These films served this audience and became successful because the same thing after the new Hollywood movement happened 20 years later with the indie film hype of the 90s. Filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino that combined American film culture with foreign film culture in really innovative ways. Filmmaker or also people like Kevin Smith, who made these small, authentic, low-budget movies that showed characters that weren't usually being in films. A filmmaker like Robert Rodriguez, also from the 90s, made movies on a super low budget, completely independent from the industry. Just like Richard Linklater, who made films for young people that were slow-paced, like very talkative, hangout kind of movies, very different from what came before and what people were being used to, but at the same time what a lot of people were interested in seeing. And I see a very similar thing happening in the world of Christian filmmaking right now. Because I think we're at a similar point now, 20 to 30 years later again, where the world has gone through all kinds of different drastic events that have left people asking the big questions again in a new way, and the industry is catching up. Like a lot of people are returning to more traditional things, to the Bible, because they're searching for answers for the big questions, for the meaning, purpose of their lives. And the Bible has answers for that. The Bible has answers for that have worked for thousands of years. Film industry is also catching up to this trend right now. This brings me to my next point. I don't think that the industry really cares about God, they care about making money. Let me give you an example. One of the producers who actually helped the Wonder Project studios get their start and actually co-produced the first film by Dallas Jenkins, it was Jason Blum from Blumhouse. Film fans will know that Blumhouse is one of the major horror film studios, and Jason Blum is one of the major horror film producers. I don't know Jason Blum personally. I don't know where his heart is. Do I think that he cares about Christianity? I don't think so, but I do think that he's a smart businessman and a good film producer, and that's why he's interested in producing faith-based stuff, because it's a great business opportunity. I personally, honestly, just care about the quality of content that comes out at the end of this and how God-centered it actually turns out to be. Let's look at some of the most exciting movie and TV show announcements. The chosen creator Dallas Jenkins has launched his own studio called 5 and 2 Studios with a lineup of very interesting projects. Of course, they have like 3 seasons of The Chosen left. It will be a 7-season show. After that, we can expect The Chosen in the Wild, which is like a documentary show starring Bear Grylls and the cast of The Chosen. Then we have a 3-season series about Moses. and a limited series about the life of Joseph. And they also announced The Way of the Chosen, which will start off where The Chosen ends and will be about Paul and the apostles. The recently founded studio Wonder Project, that I already mentioned a couple of times, was co-founded by John Irwin and has many interesting titles coming up. For example, a biopic about the invention of flying by the Wright brothers. I think that this would be really interesting. It's Not Like That is also the name of a show that kind of sounds like a fun dramedy about a widowed minister. And also a movie called Sarah's Oil, starring Zachary Levi, who has starred in many solid faith-based movies. A lot of these projects are co-produced by Amazon MGM. MGM used to be one of the major film studios in the golden age of Hollywood and was recently, I think last year, bought by Amazon. Right now we also have Mel Gibson working on his Passion of the Christ sequel, and Terrence Malick working on a Bible movie, on a Jesus movie that was announced some years ago, and I think will come out this year or next year. I'm really excited for that. Angel Studios also has like announcements on announcements, a very interesting lineup of different movies. For example, I am really excited about their movie about C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. They have much more coming up. While I look at all of these releases in excitement, there's one thing I hope they will all get right. I hope they will all be God-centered. It's one thing for a show like The Chosen just getting produced independently, but it's another thing if you are in the industry, if you are in Hollywood, like collaborating with Amazon. I can imagine the pressure of conforming to the ways of the world. It just becomes really big. And we have seen that it can still work with House of David. I love that show and it's very God-centered. At the same time, it really blends into all kinds of different TV shows. Like it's on that level, it is just that quality. I think the show works because its writers and directors are all Christian, or at least come out of the faith-based content space. The rest of the team, of course, could and should include unbelievers because you want to hire the best craftsmen for the jobs. But I do think that Christian media should always be written and directed by people who follow Christ. I believe that radically Christian art and entertainment can still connect with people that are outside of the faith, far from God. And I would even argue that it's important that it does. There's a really great quote by the artist Forrest Frank that goes something like this: just like we as Christians, if we want to listen to some of the best music out right now, we would have to sacrifice our values and kind of leave our values behind. And in that same way, I think that all kinds of people are willing to listen to Christian music, watch Christian movies, and leave their values behind for that, just because they want to see the latest, best movies, TV shows. And because I believe in the power of storytelling, creativity, like content, God can really do a lot of great things in their hearts and minds when He gets them there. And it's our job to create content that's engaging, interesting, and actually not only just as good as all the other secular content out there, but even better, in order to bring people to Christ. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I'm really excited for the future of Christian filmmaking, and I hope that I made the case that why you should be as well. What do you think about all of these projects, about the current trend of Hollywood really putting a lot of budget in Christian movies? Let me know in the comments. I thank you so much for watching my video right here. Wish you all a blessed day and hope to have you back in the next one.